It really boils down to this. Do you know what your company needs to do, what you need to do, and your team needs to do next? Why is it important? And how do you get the resources for it? If you don't do that, if you don't know that, your effectiveness is going to be incredibly diminished, and you're just going to run into a lot of problems. Let's start with the first one and dive into it a little bit more. Know what the next step is. What's the next most important thing to do?
Is this something that as a leader, I'm supposed to be doing every single morning when I get to the office?
I think it's important to say, what's the most important things to do today? Now, I'm not a big fan of saying, I'm going to wait until the morning before and I'm going to wander around and look and see if there's anything that needs to be done.
Let's see.
Let's
What am I
see.
going to do
What
today?
I don't even know. It's just so unformed to me. I think one of the things that gets in the way is it's obvious that you can look ahead a few steps. It's obvious you can look ahead a few days. But a lot of people they're reactive. And so your team has to know at a base level, and you do, what's happening tomorrow? What's happening this week? What are the important things that are going to have to happen every day to get product out to customers? So there's a level at which when you're saying, how granular do you get? That's what SOPs are, standard operating procedure.
Sure.
This is what you do first, next, next. Sometimes the what's next is a sequential plan that's really helpful. But it's amazing how many companies, when you ask, have you thought through the steps for this basic task? They haven't.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a what's next at a basic level that needs to be taken care of.
But it seems to me
Yes.
that if, as a leader, even at a larger strategic level,
Yep.
if you've determined what's the next thing that has to happen, then it would help you determine like that I need to keep that moving forward. Whatever that thing is, I need to apply energy to that on a regular basis
Absolutely.
because it becomes a priority, right? Because the other thing that happens if we don't know what the next thing is to do that's really important is we get distracted by all the other things that you could be doing that keep us busy. When you get to the end of the day, you're not even sure what you did. You just know you were busy all day doing it, right?
Yeah.
And as leaders, we struggle with that too. Like we can be at that place where I didn't do the important thing.
Okay. So one of the things you need to do is when we say you need to know what's next, part of the reason you need to know what's next is that you need to make sure that you're doing the right things in order. Part of it is so you don't get distracted by the tyranny of the urgent.
Yeah.
Now, knowing what you're supposed to do next doesn't stop from distractions happening.
No, absolutely not.
Knowing
I think it invites them sometimes.
right?
Hmm.
Knowing it's why it's important. One of the reasons we need to know why it's important, and we need to know that it is the most important next thing to do, or the rest of the stuff, or a lot of other stuff can't get done, is because when you're distracted by the tyranny of the urgent, the conviction that what you're doing is the right thing is important to have so you can say no to other stuff. This is the way I would look at it. Imagine a bucket with different size rocks in it. We use the analogy of focus on the big rocks.
Right.
Imagine every size rock is the significance of these projects, but they're all needed for the company to run. And so each one has its own next steps that needs to happen. And quite frankly, sometimes the big ones are longer term projects, which break down into medium rocks, which break down into smaller rocks, and you start working on it. But when we're doing day-to-day stuff, there's big things that need to be done today and things that like they can wait till tomorrow. But eventually they're going to need to be done. They're going to need to be the next thing.
So I think that that's an important thing to say because you decide what the next most important thing is and you keep at it. But the reality is sometimes a circumstance will shift it radically and you have to go, okay, well, that most important thing is either going to have to wait or it is completely shifted and we can't do that thing. But I do like the reality that we need to be going, okay, what's next? What matters most? And why is that important? And I think you said this, but the why is that important piece, if it's something that's going to take some effort and energy, it's easy to get discouraged.
Yeah.
Right? It's easy to go do stuff that's easier.
Yeah.
Because most of the time the things that are really going to push us forward and really help us do what we need to do may cause a bit of discomfort, right? So being able to determine for yourself as well as for the team what do we do and why is it important, I think is really important,
Yeah.
because whatever that uncomfortableness is that comes with that, you've got to be able to press through that. So knowing why something is important allows us to stay focused on it and push through it and not give up and just flit onto something else. Because there's, we talk about shiny object syndrome, right? And we have it sometimes. Clients have it like, we're doing this and we decided this is what matters. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's like, but what about this? But what about this? And it's like, well, okay, but so very, very critical to define why something matters and what the end goal is of that if we keep moving forward with it.
When you look at a line of data, say a stock chart that's over 5, 10 years, there's
Ups and downs.
there are some ups and downs, yes, but overall the line is pretty stable. It's pretty solid. It's pretty straight, even if it goes straight up or straight down, or but the curve, the arc moves in an organization that survives, it moves up and to the right. Had to wait a minute, how does
Yeah.
it do that? Up and to the right. There's growth and everything else. Okay. Especially great companies.
Mhm.
But like the stock market, when you start moving in and zooming in on a chart, what you start to see is way more data points. It's basic statistics and charting of statistics. The data points seem all over the place.
Yeah.
We have obviously kept first things first and focused over the last 22 years in business. And yet, when you think about the day to day, week to week, and sometimes month to month, the chart seems to be all over the map, and there seems to be shiny objects syndrome and everything else. But if you just talk about the day to day, it sounds like either you will never get anywhere. We would never have gotten anywhere. How do you talk about and hold and think about both of those things in as a co-founder of the company and as our company?
So I think I need you to clarify a little bit because talking about both the fact that there's kind of a squirreliness. I mean, I'm thinking about the up and to the right, you know, kind of if you even out the curve, that's what it looks like. But if you zoom in, I remember seeing like one of my favorite graphs was people are saying it's like this, and actually it's like this.
Right, right.
And it gets higher, but it's
Squigglier and
all
squigglier and
woo,
squigglier, and
right?
yeah,
And that's the reality, right?
yeah,
Of what it looks like to run a company. And I think so I think there are day-to-day things that pull away. And sometimes when some of those squiggle marks go in the wrong direction or
yeah,
they feel like they've scooped out and,
yeah,
just gotten messy, I think it's because there have been moments, seasons where we got pulled away from something that was really, really important that we
sure,
wanted to be doing, and we let that distract us. So there's those components. But I think the day to day of what matters every day and the longer term have to be playing together. So I'm not
yeah.
quite sure.
I
I feel like there's a question that you're asking me that I'm not quite wrapping
let me
my
say it
brain
this
around.
way: sometimes when in your vulnerability
Hmm.
and you talk about the day to day of work, you are quick and easy to talk about all the things you do wrong.
Yes,
You're very good at confessing those things
I am.
and talking about how challenging it is and hard it is, and you're not perfect at this and you're not perfect at that, and we as a company struggle with this and we struggle with that. I think that's easy for all of us to do at some point. It's also easy for leaders to just stay there
Mm,
and not hold the tension of, wait a minute, if that's the total truth,
yeah, then
then a
they wouldn't
company should
survive.
never serve that. They either won't grow or they
Yeah.
won't grow into the future. They won't stay alive. So there's this other part where it's like people go, well, wait a minute, you've done this, this, this. We've had peers
Hmm.
sit down with us over dinner and go, yeah, but you did this, this, and this.
Right.
But those two things were both true.
Absolutely.
There's a bit of a squirreliness and distractions, and how well do we keep first things first? How well do we stay tracking on what's the next thing versus the longer picture that we
Yeah.
do stay on? Is that hard for you tension wise to remember both of those? And if so, in what way? And if not, why?
Yeah, I think partly because of the way that I'm put together. You go back to Myers-Briggs, right? And I'm an S. I'm a hardcore S. S is a sensory, which means I am all about what I can touch, taste, smell, feel, right? So
Yeah,
it's like and I'm very present.
yeah,
I'm very present tense in how I view the world.
Mhm.
So it is a little harder sometimes for me to remember the perspective. I have to be reminded. That's
Right.
why I have friends and a spouse who's an intuitive and keeps context really well because I can tend to forget that. And that will mire me down. And I think it also prevents me from focusing on what the right next best thing is because I'm freaking out. And so I'm just doing stuff.
Yeah. How do you make sure you don't get stuck? Because there are some
Mm.
people, leaders, everybody else, don't look at the day-to-day challenges, and all they look at is, "Oh, it's been great. Oh, it's been fine," or, "Oh, it's been horrible," but usually fine, and they think about just the big picture. If anybody's listening right now who is struggles with what you're struggling with in processing the next right thing and all of that, and why, what are the symptoms you have to not get stuck there, to come out of that place?
I tell someone that I'm struggling with it. I tell you often,
Yeah.
sometimes another person, but often you. And I'm like, just remind me what the big picture is.
Yeah.
Remind me that it's going to be okay. Remind me that even though we're saying this massive thing and it feels like I'm going to die, I'm not going to die. I felt like I'm going to die before and I haven't died. So here we are. So for me, I journal, I reflect, I pull
Right.
back,
Right.
right? I try and pull out of the weeds. I spend time with the Lord. I invest in regularly going back to what's actually true,
Yeah.
right? And I have a regular prayer for me, which is help me see beyond what is visible to what is true,
Yeah.
because that's not easy for me to do. And that helps me. And I've mentioned this in other podcasts, but the other thing that helps me is when I really think I'm really struggling, I will look at the situation in the world and look at other people and go, dude, I'm good. It's okay.
Yeah.
Like in all the important ways. There is enough today. I am enough. My relationships are good, whatever. So for me, it really is just a pulling back and intentionally going, I gotta pull up, pull up. Cause I know when I'm nosediving, I know when I'm getting mired
Yeah.
down and I can't focus on the next big thing. So, and I'm fortunate to have a business partner who you major on that ability to focus. And it's not that you
Yeah.
don't have hard days, but you think about the big picture as part of your normal state of being,
Yeah.
right? So,
Now, a lot of entrepreneurs, they're dreamers, but there's a lot of them that are just, we got a problem, we're going to solve the problem. And they're doing the day to day really well. But what's interesting is there's this other side of focusing on what's the micro of what's next, that you can lose the
mhm.
macro of what's
And
next.
who reminded him?
And you
What?
reminded him.
Miraculous. I
And
was
you
like,
reminded
and there's a
him.
bigger picture. And let's remember your BHAG. And let's think long term.
That's a skill that's actually important.
Well, and that brings up a good point. I think knowing who you are in that
Yeah.
and then having somebody else that can partner with you, whether they're another owner of the company or just somebody that you bring in who does think bigger picture.
Yeah.
I think that that's helpful to have both of those elements in a company.
Yeah. And
So
you can do that with a team. You don't
yeah,
have to do that with yourself. You need to have other perspectives on your team,
yeah,
other people that can look at different things, or it choosing to go have those conversations. You
yeah,
can have peers, you can have friends, people that you can seek counsel from. You go,
yeah.
okay,
Leadership coaching,
yeah,
for example, right?
great
Uh,
example. I
yeah,
know you're good at this. Can you ask me some questions? Can you listen to what I'm thinking about and help me think through this other side?
yeah,
And dealing with that. The why, again, the why is super important. The why is just gives a lot more weight to, you won't be swayed. You have to have the confidence. And the more you're leading, the more you have to be able to tell your people, I am confident this is what's doing.
yeah.
Confidence is important in sales, confidence is important in leadership. And if you don't have the confidence, it will dramatically affect your leadership.
Well, people won't trust you,
Like, well, you don't seem to believe what you're saying, and I
right?
don't agree with what you're saying.
Right.
So, can we do that? The third part is finding those resources. And it doesn't get talked about a lot, but, and it probably is worth its own video on its own. But the concept of, okay, my goal isn't just to do it all myself. My goal isn't just to tell everybody to just do it all, unless I've built the company up enough where there's a system and a structure of people in place and they know what to do. But I've got to be engaged somewhat. How are we going to find this? Sometimes the senior leader, their goal is to find enough money.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you find money for this growth? Growth eats money, like for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and is hungry. And so if you're going to grow your company, you've got to have cash coming in. Somehow you've got to have an infusion of cash. You've got to make sure that you have the right people. Those are that, and I don't want to call them human resources as they've been called, but you've got to have, as part of your resource stack, who's going to do the work? Are they the right people on the bus?
Right.
Are you convinced they're the right people on the bus, and are they in the right seats?
Well, and do you have the right technology in place to
Yes.
achieve things, right? Or do you have
We run
the
into
right,
that problem all the time.
yeah, do
with
you have
clients.
the right resources? Like you want to do this big, take something super, super simple. You want to do this massive email campaign, but what's your email software? Outlook. Well, that's not going to work
Yeah.
for all kinds of legal reasons. So, great for individual emails, really important, but so
You can't send 1,000 emails out of.
No, it won't
once
go.
out of.
It won't go well. So just even understanding, from a simple thing like that to larger technology solutions
Yeah.
that will allow, again, be a resource to help X happen.
Yeah.
Those are not unimportant. Do I have the cash? Do I have the people? Do I have the resources in terms of technology? The space, depending on what you're wanting to do. Are you running an event? Whatever it is. So all of those resources become really critical, because otherwise your people are like, that's great that that's the next thing to do, but we don't have the resources to do that.
Yeah.
We're not equipped, right? And there's nothing that's going to discourage a team more than being tasked to do something that they're not actually equipped with the right learning, the right resources, the right tools, etc., to do effectively.
Yeah. So those are the three things: know what's next, know why, how to bring the resources to it.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's been helpful for you as you're listening today. And you're going to gain something from those three things. And I want you to just think about them more. Think about how you're going to use them and dig deeper into how well do you know and make decisions on what the next thing is. How well or how confident are you that they're the right decisions? And then what do you need to do to improve your game when it comes to bringing those resources in? It's those three things that hopefully this has really given you some food for thought. If there's anything else we can do, please check one of the links below and see if we can help you. Thanks a lot for listening. Have a great day.